Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Help Is Here podcast, brought to you by the Beyond Compulsion Academy. In this episode, me and Mary are going to be talking about addiction. And today I want to talk a little bit about withdrawal because I've spent a lot of today reading academic papers and there seems to be some misconceptions around the desire and what withdrawal is like. So welcome back on the show, Mary. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right today. So far, so good. How are
Yeah,
you?
good to see you. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Not too bad, thanks. Good to get into all the work again.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, first of all, what is withdrawal when it comes to porn addiction recovery, or I suppose any addiction?
I don't know. For me, I know there's a whole lot of scientific, and I'm sure you can share it after all your research today. But I feel like if you just break it down to the simple, you're going to feel uncomfortable because when you have a desire to engage in an addictive or compulsive behavior and you are try not to do that, then the neural pathways want to go from here's the desire, then I'm going to act on it, right? And you're trying to deny that, right? Go a different way. That's uncomfortable. So, I mean, once those neural pathways change, then that discomfort will go away. I mean, if you think about like if you go to the gym and you haven't worked out for a long time, it's going to be very uncomfortable at first when you try to lift the weights, but
Mm,
you're building that muscle. Um, and it's about feeling uncomfortable. So we know it's going to be uncomfortable. Withdrawal obviously is not going to be like, going to a little party and having some fun, but all the scientific evidence, it's not really relevant. I don't know how it would help, but what did you find out today that was useful
mm.
that I mean that you can
Yeah,
share?
it's a good question. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I spent time just kind of going from one academic paper to another, and I mean, there's some stuff about dopamine again and the mesolimbic pathways and basically where dopamine starts off and where it travels to in the brain and how that can form these memories and how, from the evolutionary perspective, we want to then engage in that behavior again. And we have the transcription factors which change our genes like delta phosphate and creb and all of this stuff. But as you'll know, none of that stuff's actually going to help you change those neural pathways. I think what it does do is help you understand maybe, okay, there's nothing inherently wrong with me. And I think when it comes to porn addiction, there's so much of the sexual shame and that can really get in the way of people actually realizing that there is the hope, there is the potential for them to change their neural pathways and overcome this for good because they kind of feel like there's something intrinsically wrong with their sexual desires, which is not the case. And the other thing that I found quite interesting is I was watching a different YouTube video by someone who actually had millions of views. And that was actually what led me down this route of wanting to read more of the academic research on addiction. And this person was saying that they'd read some research and some science around addiction.
Hmm.
And they were saying that meaninglessness, so a lack of purpose in life, was one of the
Hmm.
causes for porn addiction. And that's what led me to wanting to research all of that a lot more. So I read a few papers on the relationship between meaning and porn addiction, and I didn't really find many strong correlations. The main thing that came up was that people essentially want to get out of discomfort, and the lack of meaning in their life may be one reason why they have discomfort in their life. And it talked about existential threats and all of this stuff. I think what it came down to is withdrawal. And I think the language around it was incorrect. And people were getting confused by thinking that because people were maybe struggling in life in one way or another, they were then diagnosing the problem as being a lack of meaning in their life, when I would actually suggest that no, you're probably experiencing withdrawal and discomfort because your brain's been addicted to porn. And so now you've got to go through this period of time where you have withdrawal. And so you have increased desire and maybe you feel like you can't do it, or maybe it's feelings of deprivation. So yeah, Mary, do you want to jump in on all of that?
It's a lot.
There's a lot there. Sorry. I've honestly been
Thank
reading
you
all
for
day.
transferring your head explosion onto me. Um,
Yeah. So
so okay, so everyone experiences existential crisis, right? The meaningless of life, all this stuff, right? Yeah, guess what? We're human and it kind of sucks. Like, what the hell? What the hell's going on? Why am I here? Why do I exist? Whatever. So then, why? why isn't everybody addicted? If we're if that's what causes us to be addicted, you know? I mean, because
Mm,
we feel have these feelings of meaninglessness, you know? It's like then everybody would be addicted.
yeah.
And
You,
so if you have an addiction and then you experience existential crisis, which everybody does, you know, it comes and goes, you know, I've had it a lot throughout my life, you know. And then it comes and goes, but if you're not practicing an addiction that has you know solidified neural pathways from wanting to engage in an addictive behavior to doing it, then that your brain doesn't go there. You know what I
mm,
mean? It's just like you sit with the damn existential crisis feelings, which are uncomfortable, but really has
mm.
nothing to do with addiction. You know, if you don't have an addiction, you don't. I don't have an existential crisis and go eat donuts.
Yeah, yeah.
You
You know
know?
what I think part of it is that within the social communities online of people trying to overcome addiction and porn addiction in particular, a lot of them will spend time in these echo chambers where maybe they're in a no-fap community. And so everyone there is trying to find correlations between themselves, like trying to figure out, okay, so we've all got this problem, why do we have this problem? And then there's maybe some similarities within those communities. But
Yes.
for me, what I've found is that yeah, so many people struggle in life, but not everyone has addiction, and that's why I see addiction as a separate thing to the problems that one may have in their life. And that for me has really come out from me doing that volunteering work. You know, as I've said before,
Yeah.
I've done volunteering at Samaritans for like almost 2.5 years now. And at Samaritans, you know, I've probably taken hundreds of hours worth of calls with people who are seriously depressed, some of them even suicidal. And so they're there sharing with me in a very intimate, one on one, completely confidential call their deepest troubles and worries in life. So I've heard it all, to be honest with you.
Wow.
I've heard stuff which you couldn't even imagine, like some of the darkest shit imaginable, really, really horrible stuff. And I don't say that from a place of, oh, look at me, I've heard this horrible stuff. It's more just like those people who've told me these horrendous stories were not all addicted. There's people out there in the world struggling really bad with the mental health, but not every single person is addicted. Now, obviously, a lot of addiction and sort of mental health problems will probably be correlated, but not all of them. And I think if you kind of can separate out addiction from mental health problems, people would probably be in a better place, because instead of identifying with all these different labels now, like depression or anxiety and all of these things, then maybe sometimes people would actually realize, wait, I'm actually addicted to something instead.
Yeah. So a lot to unpack. So the people in the communities looking for the why, right?
Mm.
Always looking for the why. Why am I doing this? And then they find this camaraderie. And I saw this meme. It was like, oh, you or no, it was the Onion guy looking for, you know, deep into the internet, looking for the validation of what he was already thinking, right? You know, so if you look deep enough, you're going to find validation of what you want to think, which in this case probably comes from the addictive part of the mind. Oh, look at this is why I
Mm.
do this, because it's
Yeah,
my whatever, all the shit you just named, you know, that's happening. And so
yeah,
everyone's going on there, you know, and in the community validating each other's this is why I do it. But
yeah. And by the way, that's just classic confirmation bias as well, which
right, yeah,
happens all the time.
exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, carry on. Yeah.
Yeah. So but then now, okay, maybe there's some value. I don't know what it is, and knowing why you do it. You know,
Mm.
it's like maybe because then you understand addiction, how it works in the brain. Then maybe there's less shame. It's not just me. Here's all these
Mm.
other people that do this too, and everybody's susceptible to addiction. But
Mm.
what's missing is the comprehensive. How do I stop doing this? Right. So, and I think that's where the correlation comes in with addiction and mental illness is you know, you can go all day long looking online for those answers, and that's going to make you even more, you know, anxious and whatever, and in your head and in these thought patterns without a route that you can create in your neural pathways to get out of it, right? So,
Mm.
mental illness, starts overthinking, then it's ADHD, then it's OCD, right? And most of them probably have an addictive behavior that they can't find a really tangible solution, right? Where I can do this, I can apply this, and I'm going to actually get free of this. I'm going to change my pathways. And boy, I'll tell you what, you have a problem and you don't have a way to solve it, that's going to make you feel really, anxious and horrible. So then hence, mental illness diagnoses. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
all correlated for sure. Yeah.
I think something that me and you may potentially have some subtle difference of opinions on is probably the way in which society plays a role in people getting addicted. Now, I'm not sure exactly
Yeah.
what your perspective will be on this. I want to ask you in a moment,
Yeah.
but I wanted to just share how one thing I did find really interesting as well from some of my research today was that back in 1999, so 26 years ago, there was this study where this guy called Mark Griffiths was basically trying to figure out sort of if people were getting addicted to the internet and whether like internet addiction was a real thing. And someone else had done this study and they'd found that, people were being classed as internet addicted if they were spending 38.5 hours on the internet. And then there was a group of people who were not addicted to the internet who would only spend 4.9 hours per week on the internet. And I found that just so interesting because like 38.5 hours a week on the internet was like addiction, like that was classed as addiction. Whereas nowadays, I feel like people spend way more than that
Way
on
more
the
than
internet.
that. Yeah.
It
Well, the
was
thing
just so
is you're
interesting.
online if you're looking at all the different things you're online for, if you're doing your work online, that's going to classify. So, I mean, maybe you need to go on an internet diet, you know, that counting calories, counting internet hours, getting notifications on your phone telling you how much you're on your phone or whatever, which is like, you know, when you're eating way too much food, when you're engaging in an addiction, when you're using your phone for just mindless bullshit versus checking your emails, doing your, calls. I mean, I'm on the phone a lot, just messaging with the guys on the WhatsApp. That's all phone use. It's like I don't check my emails on my laptop. I check them on my phone because it's more comfortable, sit in the living room, whatever. I do all of that. Text messaging my family, my friends, whatever. It's all, but the difference when you're just mindless scrolling on endless bullshit, it's you don't need an application or whatever to tell you, oh, hey, this is how much you're on your phone. So now create a, what was that thing that you guys were talking about in the WhatsApp string today?
Yeah, we were talking with a client about
Yeah.
how you can set your phone to give you like a
Yeah.
message when you've been on an app for 15 minutes or longer, and then it will like say like, do you want to continue on this app or do you want to get off it? So it's kind of like
Yeah.
pinging you to notify you've spent
Now I
maybe
get
too long on
15
an app.
more minutes or 5 more minutes or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
What that just totally reminds me of?
Mm.
Parents setting the timer for their kids. You're on the iPad or whatever. When the dinger goes off, then you got to get off the iPad. It's just like, yeah. As if
Yeah.
adults, we don't know, like,
Well, I
And
called
the
it like
thing
the
is
illusion of
you
deprivation.
can say you're not going to do it, and you can just do it anyway. You have a choice, So all these little things that it's like now quitters day is what I was trying to say last time, and I couldn't remember what it's called. 2 weeks into the New Year's resolution is quitters day or whatever, and now it's an ad for a watch. So in order to not quit on your New Year's resolution, you have this watch on your hand. So the watch is going to keep you committed to your resolution because it's going to, I don't know what it's going to do, but they're also saying you're getting all kinds of radioactive
Yeah.
waves through your wrist. But, the thing is, take the fucking watch off, throw it, whatever. It's not going to stop you from doing anything. All these external things,
Yeah.
the solution, are not going to stop you it's just taking away from your knowing. If you have to have a phone tell you you're on your phone this much,
Mm.
you know how much you're on your phone. I mean,
Yeah,
knowing the
just
exact in hours and minutes is not gonna that's not gonna change anything.
yeah, and it's funny as well because the way you were explaining then about, you go on WhatsApp to talk to clients about this, this, and this, and it's like you don't need like an explanation or a reason because you just know what's reasonable and what's not. And I remember this morning, like I was writing in our community in the Beyond Compulsion Academy a
Yeah,
little bit about this study, and I wrote it at first. I wrote something along the lines of, "Yeah, I probably go on my phone more than 38.5 hours a week or something like that." I don't
yeah,
know because
me
I
too.
don't even know how many hours it is or not. And then I like deleted that part of the post because I was like, it doesn't even matter. Like what matters is are you engaging a reasonable amount or not? That's all it comes down to. Like, are you in control of your choices? Yes or no? Are you making choices you're proud of? Yes or no?
Yeah,
And so for one person going on their phone an hour a week, maybe like really, really harmful to them if that's too much. Whereas to another person, that might seem like, whoa, that's like literally nothing. It's more about your relationship with that behavior. Is it compulsive? Is it not? And you'll know if it's compulsive or if it's not compulsive because,
yeah.
in fact, let's get into that actually, Mary, because you're the best person to ask. Like, how do you even like know if a behavior is compulsive or not?
How do you know?
Yeah, if a behavior is compulsive, like I know the answer, but like, can you
Yeah.
explain, to the audience?
Well, it's just the way that you feel about it, you know? I mean, if you know, if you feel like you don't have a choice about it, you feel like you can't stop, like it's something else that's driving you to you feel compelled, you feel driven, you feel obsessed, it's like that to me. And if there's negative consequences from the choice to engage in that behavior, that's to me, that's compulsion. Is
Yeah,
that
you know what that makes me think as well is that was the other thing I didn't really like about these academic research papers is a lot of them were trying to, classify and label whether certain behaviors should be an addiction or not. So like, should porn be classed as a porn addiction in the DSM-5, I don't know, whatever it's
yeah,
called,
yeah, yeah, the
like all these
DS1,
sort of
yep.
things. And it's like your answer just then is like perfect. Like it's really a subjective thing where every single
Yeah,
individual is different. Like they'll know whether behavior is compulsive or not for them. And so whether we class it as addiction or not isn't really relevant based on all these studies. And usually the studies are like, how often are you using this thing? And it's like again, the amount you're using a thing isn't really going to be the best indicator of whether something is compulsive or not. I'd say most of our clients come into our program, they're not looking at porn every day. Like most of
yeah,
the guys we work with are actually at a position where they're not looking at it that often, but it's on their mind a lot. And that's the
yeah,
problem, and
yeah,
that's what we change by changing the thought patterns. Because
yeah,
most of our guys are functioning people with good jobs, good
yeah,
families, they're sorted
yeah.
in many areas of their life, but mentally they are struggling with a porn addiction
Yeah,
because
a
it's
lot of
working their
their
brain.
this a lot of the one of the biggest consequences is that, uh, it comes from trying not to do it, right? Without
Mm,
a tool, right? Just trying
yeah.
not to do it. They're almost as miserable doing that as they are being in it if they were doing it every day, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
It's a
and
different
actually,
different sort of consequence, the negative consequence, you know? But
yeah, I feel.
yeah,
By the way, apologies because all I'm doing is kind of just like spitting out all this information I've learned today. Because honestly, I've
you're
read
good.
quite a bit. But another thing that I learned that I thought was quite interesting was actually the relationship between porn and religion. Because there
Oh,
was a
yeah.
few studies that found that those who did have religious upbringings and had religion in their life on average, they would view pornography less as a whole,
Right.
throughout society. However, they were way more likely to be addicted. And that makes complete sense. When we
Yeah,
understand deprivation and what you just said there, that the problem
yeah,
is having this thing in your life, but trying not to have it in your life. That's the
yeah,
problem, right? So
right.
you want to explain and kind of expand on that? Like, why would people who do have religion in their life actually be more susceptible to have a porn addiction, despite as a whole throughout society, people who are religious are less likely to actually watch porn?
Deprivation thinking.
Hmm.
I can't do this because this is bad, this is evil, my church is gonna, gonna ban me, whatever, all that kind of stuff. We have a lot of guys that had a religious upbringing, that really feel like it's a sin or it's evil or it's, that it really is a reflection on them as a human being, that there's something very wrong with them if they go against the beliefs in their church and use porn, or whatever. So they're trying not to do it. They're intermittently reinforcing it. They feel like they can't, like they don't have a choice. So it makes a lot more sense that they would have that it would become a very addictive, very compelling relationship that they have with the porn. It makes perfect sense
Mm.
to me.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
me too. And
yeah.
then why would somebody who doesn't have religion in their life be less susceptible to getting addicted to porn?
Well, maybe because they're just letting themselves engage. It's
Mm,
interesting because it's like I've told a lot of my food compulsive people, you're better off just eating totally out of control, than going on a diet, trying to stop, because it's like you don't create stronger neural pathways through that intermittent reinforcement, But the thing is the guys that are just using it freely and not judging themselves and not trying to stop, that definitely has a time limit. We've seen it, it's like these
mm,
guys they're not out there going, oh, this is great. I love this. I'm just going to roll with this, indefinitely. No, they're miserable too, but maybe they're not feeling that as strong a pull in the addictive aspect of it as someone who's grown up in religion, who's got a major judgment on themselves about it, trying
yeah.
harder to stop. Oh my God, I can't do this because, these guys are
Mm,
just more like, oh yeah, well, I'm doing it. And okay, wait, I'm miserable. I want to stop doing this. It just goes to show the power of deprivation thinking and in addiction. So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And of course, there are generalizations. Like we work with such a range of clients who are
yeah,
either religious or non-religious. And I think one thing I probably heard a bit more from the non-religious clients that we've worked with when it comes to junkie thinking, so any excuse, rationalization, justification to engage in the behavior,
yeah,
is the thought of, oh, everyone does it. Like all my friends are doing this, so it's fine. Something along those lines. You probably hear that a little bit more from the non-religious clients that we work with,
mhm.
and so, yeah, it doesn't take away the consequences there, because then we'll have a chat and they'll be like, okay, well, read me your remember letter. And you hear that and you're like, okay, well, if everyone's doing it, but your remember letter is still like this, like, what
Yeah.
do you choose to do? Because this is your choice at the end of the day.
Well, everybody's eating out of control. So let's all just do that. And then we can all become diabetic and all get a whole bunch of more cancers and, all of that. It's like because everybody's doing it doesn't change the consequences. Again, it might make you feel a little bit better, very temporarily, that,
Mm,
oh, look, everyone's doing this. So you can take the judgment off yourself. But you can take the judgment off yourself just by understanding that everybody's susceptible to addiction. It's
mm,
again, even if everybody's doing it, it doesn't change the negative consequences. You still need to experience that. You still need to be with yourself at the end of the day, regardless of what everybody else is doing, and you're paying those consequences. So,
mm,
but that camaraderie, I think, like you said initially, people in the online communities, they feel a little bit of like, oh look, I'm I'm okay because everyone feels like this or everyone's doing this. So, which just goes to show they want relief from that conflict of living in an addiction. If you weren't conflicted and feeling bad, you wouldn't be looking for a solution, you wouldn't be
mm.
looking for a way out. You'd just be doing it and being like, yeah, party on. So it's that basic, dilemma. You want to do it and you want to stop. So when the addiction's really powerful and in control, you deny that you want to stop. Oh, it's okay. It's okay because everybody's doing it, right?
Mm.
It's natural. It's human nature to want to get out of that conflict. It's very difficult to live in conflict in your mind. I've said it
Yeah,
before, I'll say it again. It's a full-time job.
yeah,
So
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just talking about like the wanting, the other thing that I picked up on was a few of the papers that I was reading, they kind of correlated the desire and wanting with addiction a little bit too much, in my opinion, because I think it was a bit disempowering to think that okay, just because you want to engage in something, that means you're addicted. And now, obviously, over time, if you think through that choice repeatedly over and over and over, yeah, you're not going to continue wanting the thing because the reason you want it is to get out of withdrawal and discomfort. So I suppose it is a good indicator. But
Yeah.
also, in a way, I did think, well, you know what? Just because you want something doesn't mean you have to act on it. And I think
Right.
that's another big sort of misconception we have, which is that like you're disempowered, you're helpless. If you have desire, then you've got to give in, which is just
Yeah.
complete bullshit. Like
Yeah.
everyone listening to this is completely able to make choices for themselves moment by moment. And something I was thinking about recently was like most people have probably experienced being drunk at some point in their life. Like I definitely have, and maybe I speak for other people a bit too much there, but I'd imagine more than 50% probably have. And if you've been drunk in your life, you'll know that, okay, maybe your decision making isn't going to be quite as good. Maybe parts of the brain are going to be
Yeah.
inhibited or just not working as well as you'd like. But overall, you don't go out and kill people, like you
Right.
don't go out and commit crazy crimes. Like
Right.
just because your brain may not be working as efficiently as you would like, and maybe like the prefrontal cortex isn't functioning perfectly, that doesn't mean you go and make decisions which are like insanely bad for you. And when you can heighten the consequences in your mind of how bad choosing to engage and watch
Yeah.
porn actually is for you and how that actually impacts your life, you're gonna have a way better chance of getting free of this.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I just think empowering people to make these choices is so important.
It's spot on because it's like we are in the age of learned helplessness, right? For sure. So, and like you started out with this, um, okay, you're drunk. So, right, you might not make the best choices. But, you know, so you're drunk, you have this desire, somebody does something shitty, and you want to just punch them, you want to just smack them,
Mm,
but you don't because you know the long-term consequence of decking somebody because you're at this bar, you're in public, right? You smack them, take them out, right? You know the police are going to get called, you're going to go to jail for an assault charge, right? Whatever. You know the consequences. So your brain doesn't go, oh, I'm going to just punch this asshole and hope I can get away with it. Your
mm,
brain doesn't even go there. Like, and so the thing is, but with addiction, until you create those pathways, you think, oh, well, yeah, maybe I can just go use a little porn or use a little whatever and hope I can get away with it and not full on, relapse into my addiction. But you don't have those pathways. So the main point is that so many things, I mean, you can want to do so many things, but nothing can make you act. You know what I mean? It's like
mm,
just because you want doesn't mean that you're going to act. And see,
yeah,
that's the way we think now. And it's always, well, that's just who I am. If I want this, if I want to do, that's just the way I am. I was just watching something recently. Oh, I have to. Oh, it was a dating show, right? The guy, it made me just think, oh, I'm never dating again. But the guy said, I have to put all the cans of food facing the same direction. I have to have. You should seen his refrigerator.
mm,
I'm like, oh my god, who's ever gonna
mm,
live with this dude? No way, run, ladies. So he's like, you open up his refrigerator, and he's like, literally every soda bottle. He's got all these soda things, like they're almost like alphabetized. His
mm,
closet, and he kept on saying, "Oh, I have to have it like this. If you come to visit me at my house." And you're trying to, we're getting ready to go out and you can't leave like some things you were thinking about wearing, you can't leave those out, you have to put them back into the closet in the color coding and whatever. I have to have this way. This is what I have to do, he kept on saying. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
you want to alphabetize your soda in the refrigerator
Yeah. Yeah.
to do it, but that's the way we think now. This is just who I am. I'm OCD or I'm this or I'm that. So this is what I have to do rather than this is what I want to do. I want to alphabetize my soda in the refrigerator.
I
You know,
know.
doesn't
I
mean you have
know.
to do it. It means you got to
It's
do
so
it,
true.
you know?
Yeah, yeah. Like with my partner, sometimes she'll message me and she has like a quite a regimented marathon plan at the moment. And sometimes
Mhm.
she'll say like, "Oh, I need to do a 12-kilometer run later." And I always just reply like, "You want to do a 12-kilometer run later?" And like with a wink. And then afterwards, it's like, "Sorry to life coach you. Have a great
Yeah.
day," but something like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure it annoys the hell out of her, but also it
Yeah.
kind of annoys me when she tells me she needs to do things or she has
Yeah.
to do things because it's just like, well, that's not true. Like your language is not gonna serve you in the long run, and
You
I'm
know,
only saying it from like a good place.
language is so critical. As a matter of fact, in the call I had yesterday, we went over the language. So I'll never be able to watch porn again. This is with some junky thinking that this person was
Mm,
having. Um, I'm going on this trip, and so, but I can't do it this time. Do porn on the trip, right?
yeah,
Because but and if I have to think about the script, then I have to choose option A. And I mean, like you can think, oh, these people are just picking apart the negatives of the words or whatever. But when you identify deprivation thinking and you correct it, you're going to feel completely different. If you let this stuff go unchecked and started out the call saying that when he would engage, it just happens so quickly. What
mm,
happens so quickly is you're speaking to yourself in an incorrect way that throws you instantly into feelings of deprivation. And yeah, it
mm,
happens quickly. And now all of a sudden you have all these terrible negative feelings, and then you're like, oh, I want to get out of this, rather than take a step back, correct the thinking right out of the
mm.
gate. Because, you don't have to do anything. That's the truth. You can make choices that fuck up your life horribly.
Yeah,
You still have
yeah,
a choice. So yeah.
exactly. That's
Anyway,
it.
got
That's it.
off on a deprivation thinking thing there, but yeah,
Yeah, no, that's true. That's it. It's
yeah,
always a choice. And yeah, I
yeah,
reckon we can wrap it up there. So
yeah,
thanks a lot for listening or watching this podcast video. If you do want to learn more about the Beyond Compulsion method, I mean, we've touched on it quite a bit today, but if you'd like to actually get a bit more of an in-depth understanding of this method, we are running a workshop in about a week's time. So on the
yeah.
15th of January 2025, we'll probably be running these maybe every now and then. I'm not sure exactly how often yet, but yeah, feel free to come along to that. There'll
Yeah.
be a link in the description so you can join us. That'll be me and Mary jumping on a call, talking through the Beyond Compulsion method in a lot more detail. Probably be around an hour and a half long, and you'll have an opportunity to ask us some questions at the end as well. So thanks a lot for watching or listening, and we will see you in the next one. Bye bye.
Bye.